Established in 2002, Kolink provided low-cost keyboards and mice to computer resellers in Hungary. Kolink has since expanded internationally, including entry-level cases and power supplies. And indeed, the company succeeded to catch the eye of the consumer with stylish and affordable products. In my case, my eye caught in this MIDI tower PC case, the Kolink Observatory Lite. Having an impressive design and a great value for what it offers, the first impressions are amazing, at least on the paper, especially if you can find the product on a sale. But is it all sunshine and ARGB rainbows, or is there a dark side that nobody is revealing? Starting with the bright side of things, the mesh front panel allows for better airflow through the case, resulting better cooling driven by the 3 front and 1 rear pre-installed 120mm ARGB LED fans. Using the accompanied RGB controller hub, you can select the various lighting modes and effects, as well as the rotation speed of the fans remotely, or you can program the ARGB system with the software if you possess, of course, a compatible motherboard. The casual black housing of the chassis highlights the color of the ARGB LED lights that you can comfortably enjoy throughout the tempered glass side panel. Underneath the case and at the honeycomb style mesh top, there are some obligatory dust filters. On the top there is also the front panel with the basic buttons and audio inputs/outputs, plus 2 USB 2 and 1 USB 3 ports. In the interior, the case is completely black, with the PSU shroud covering most of the low area and leaving a small space for the installation of an AIO cooler radiator. The case can accommodate graphics cards up to 33.5 cm long, 31 cm when mounting an AIO, and any ATX, Micro ATX, Mini ATX motherboards. Inside the case, you will find a plastic bag containing only the most essential accessories, cable ties and screws needed to begin building a PC, and that's where all the problems begin. Although the materials of this lightweight PC case are very sturdy, the metal parts are very thin, with a consequence when you fasten the motherboard standoffs into the chassis, some of the holes become loose and you have to stabilize the standoffs with adhesive. Additionally, do not even consider installing a 240mm AIO cooler on the top side of the case, as it is impossible due to the tight space between the rear fan and the circuit board of the front panel. On the contrary, the installation of a 120mm AIO cooler or CPU heatsink up to 16 cm tall will not present any problems. But if you are stubborn like me and decide to install a 240mm AIO cooler anyways, then you will have to place the 2 fans of the AIO cooler on the top and the radiator on the front of the chassis. Unfortunately, even this is not an easy task to do, since now you have to move all the front ARGB fans 1 cm lower because the front panel circuit board blocks the radiator again. And again, even with this alteration, you still have to squeeze the radiator into the circuit board at the risk of cutting the front panel cables or breaking something sensitive. Now, if you are smart, you will think of mounting the radiator at the lower front side of the case to avoid all these above obstacles. In that case, I will humbly ask you to reconsider. The reason for this is that if the radiator is placed this way, the pump located near the CPU will be the highest point in relation to radiator's top side. This will cause air bubbles to enter the pump and shorten the lifespan of the AIO cooler. During the process of building your PC, you should pay special attention to the safety measures you should take to protect yourself from the sharp metal corners of the chassis. Otherwise, there is the possibility of being seriously injured. This is not a kid-friendly PC case, considering also the hard, thick, but still breakable tempered glass. And since we are talking about it, the screws that hold the glass to the case are not covered with protective plastic, so they can scratch the surface of the glass. A bit of black electrical tape covering the screws can solve the problem. Finally, we have to mention the elephant inside the case: the cable management. With openings that are not protected with rubber rings and few fastenings for the cable ties, the right side of the case lacks any substantial room to house the cables that are connected to the motherboard. Trying to install a bulky power supply unit, even a modular one, it will be mission impossible. because of the tight space of the PSU shroud and the hard drive tray that blocks any attempt to connect the modular cables to the power supply. I managed with a smaller 14 cm length power supply unit to stack the majority of the cables inside the empty hard drive disk tray, since I installed the SSD drive at the available inlets on the top of the PSU shroud. The remaining cables and the ARGB controller barely fitted in the small gaps on the side panel near the fans. Still, despite my best efforts to manage the cables, closing the panel was a challenge. I wish things were different. Personally, I find the process of building a computer very intriguing, feeling the enjoyment of creation as well as the anticipation of the eventual outcome. But with this case, I spent an excessive amount of unpleasant time figuring out how to fit properly all the necessary PC parts, and the thought of doing this again with the same PC case is off-putting. Sorry Kolink, I really wanted to like your PC case, but I can't. Maybe someone with smaller components and fewer expectations will like your product more.